Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have a sparkling juice today because I'm rushing because I'm on a lunch break. So today's video is going to be a book review on All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. So I absolutely loved this book. I thought the book was so well done. It was pitched as a Hunger Games type story, but with magic. And I loved it so much. It's very it has villains, it has a killing tournament, morally gray choices, betrayal, and monster stories. So it was kind of a Hunger Games-esque type story where the characters, there's 7 different families, and each of the 7 families have one child that they enter into this tournament, and they all have to kill one another. And then the victor that comes out of that wins the high magic for their family, and their family gets to use the high magic throughout the rest of the time until the next blood moon rises when they have the tournament again, which is every several years. And so it's a big deal to win all this magic for your family. So the premise was really awesome. I loved the execution a lot. The magic system was really cool because there is a cost and skill and technique that has to be applied or is needed in order to be able to perform the magic, which was really cool. You're following several different POVs of the children of these families before they go into the tournament, and then obviously in the tournament. And I think what I liked about this is it is a very villainous, morally gray story. It was really interesting to see the characters' backstory throughout, and then how the characters developed throughout the story. I loved one character in particular. He was my favorite character, but I will leave you to decide who that is and not spoil too much because I do want to say something about my favorite character and don't want to ruin that. There were a lot of morally gray situations that the characters were put into where they had to make these choices out of 2 bad options, or options that is against what they believe or is for what they believe but against society. The situations that the characters were put in I thought was really cool to read about and interesting to see their thought processes behind it, to see where this character is coming from, whereas this character you understand why they're against this viewpoint, and they're in a tournament to kill one another, so obviously they're having to make choices like that about survival and killing, and it's just really cool to see all of that play out. It was also interesting because the story didn't go exactly how I thought it was gonna go, but it was really cool. And my favorite character, I thought something that was done pretty well was my favorite character was painted to be this type of a way, this type of a person, this type of a villain. But then they kind of switch at some point and they are developing throughout the story. And that kind of was really awesome, but it also took me off guard because I did not expect it. And it was just really, I'm gonna say interesting a million times, but it was really interesting to read about and to see all of this coming together and the different dynamics that all the characters play. There was a part that made me absolutely furious at the end of the book, but obviously I can't tell you what that is. There's also a lot of great quotes from this book. And one of the interesting things about this is that their history was written in this book, and they're all studying this book before they go into the tournament. And you get pieces of that book with every chapter, and it talks about the 7 families, and I don't know, it was just so good and so well done. I loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. My husband loved this book. I think he gave it 5 out of 5 stars. One thing I will tell you is that we listened to the audiobook mostly, off and on. I obviously read it too, but the audiobook, unless they have fixed it and the new version is out, the version of the audiobook I listened to and that most people have access to at the time, there was a chapter missing. So if you listened to the audiobook and you were not aware of that, there's an entire chapter missing, which took out one of the critiques I had for this book, because there was a point where a situation got resolved and you have no idea what happened, and it's just at the other end and it was resolved. But it is in the book, so if you're reading the book, that's not so jarring as it was when you're listening to the audiobook. So if you're reading the book, you will get the perfect reading experience. If you're listening to it, just be aware of that there is a chapter missing. And if you want to know what that is, I could tell you down below. Sorry about the extremely jarring adjustment in lighting. I actually ran out of time on my lunch break and I had to stop filming because some things came up. But I'm back now after work, so the sun is probably about to set. And I'm trying to just get as much lighting as possible, but it's probably gonna look really bad, so I apologize for that. But continuing on about this book, but I think you can see the tips of Legend's ears. He's much bigger now. I didn't know originally if it was gonna have a sequel or not, and now it's been announced that it is gonna have a sequel. It's just gonna be a duology, and it's called All of Our Demise or something. I've already pre-ordered it. I'm very excited about it. I really liked the character dynamics, as I mentioned before. So even though I really loved this book, I did think the beginning was a little slow. It's building the character, it's building the world, but the pacing was just a little bit off for me. I don't want that to deter you because like my husband loved it and he thought it was great world building and he didn't think it was slow at all. And I still really enjoyed it, so I don't want you to think it's like boring and weird or anything like that. But I think I was just very invested in one of the characters. And then when the other characters' POVs came in, I was kind of like, eh. But it's important for the story, obviously, and for all of the dynamics that go into this book. But one of the POVs was my favorite, and I loved every second of that POV. And so some of the other times I was just like, I just want that POV back. It is a little bit character driven, but it's also plot driven in a lot of ways, and it's kind of like a mystery and a puzzle piece at some points. It was really cool. I have no idea how they're going to wrap this up or where they're going to take this story in book 2, but cannot wait. I will read it immediately. As I told you before, there's a really good quotes in this book, and I wanted to share one with you that was my favorite towards the beginning. I'm going to leave the family's name out because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but the blank did not tell their children monster stories so that they could slay them. They told them so their children would become monsters themselves. If that's just not the perfect aesthetic and quote for this book to set the scene for you, I don't know what is. It was amazing. It was dark. It was morally gray. It was very villainous. And there's like villainous elements and heroic elements, but they're all blended together as one. So you can't have like one heroic moment without having a villainous moment. And I really liked that. I liked that no one was completely evil and no one was completely good, the whole morally gray thing. It was very much blended and amazing. The ending was very painful for me, but also gave me so much hype. We'll see what happens in book 2. I highly, highly, highly recommend you read this. If the premise is of interest to you at all, I highly recommend this book. I think it was so good. One of the best books I've read in a while. And if you do like morally gray characters, I think it's a must read. So yeah, All of Us Villains, huge thumbs up. All right, everyone, well, that was it for this gushing review video. I loved it so much. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.